versus you. It's you 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 versus you. Time to clear your mental, everything you've been through. Looking in the mirror like you're the one with the issues. You against yourself, feel like you against the world. Internally battling all of the trauma.
What's up, everybody? I'm Saquon. I'd like to welcome you all back to the You versus You podcast. We have a great conversation set up for you guys today. We're going to talk about trauma in the workplace. We're also going to talk about student teacher interchangeability. And we're going to provide a lot of real life examples, most notably from my experience, to sort of drive some of these key points home. So, buckle up for this one. It should be exciting, and hope you guys are looking forward to it. And I'm really excited because I'm having this conversation with someone that I've known, I think, shit, over 20 years now. And our dynamic is an interesting dynamic. It was one way in the beginning, and now it's another way now. But in all of that, it's always been shrouded in love because I genuinely love this person and have dear and genuine feelings toward this person. She's my family. Super duper excited to have her on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Alicia Sanders.
Thank
Welcome to the
you. Thank
show.
you so much for having me, Saquon. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, how we feeling?
We're feeling great. I'm excited to talk about our relationship. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about our relationship because it has been almost 20 years. You see me from a married woman, you see my children grow up, you see me as a divorced wife. So you see me through a lot of different changes in my life. So it's exciting. And I've seen you through a lot of different stages and changes in your life as well. So
Absolutely.
I'm
I'm glad you
excited.
said that because I was going to say that. Interestingly enough, you've seen me through some very significant changes. And I think that if we looked at the personality spectrum, a lot of my changes kind of touch the extreme of that spectrum. So super duper excited to dive right into this thing. So let's get right to it. So 20 years ago,
Hmm.
a little over 20 years ago, maybe,
Yeah,
um, we actually worked together.
we did. I had just had a daughter, stayed home with her for a year, and decided to come back into property management. And I got to interview with you. And it was a very interesting interview. Some of the techniques that you use, I still use them today. Sell me a stapler. So I still use those today. And you were my property manager, and I was your leasing consultant. And it was very interesting.
Very interesting to say the least. And I can honestly admit that. So, to provide a little bit more color, so yeah, so we worked together. I was the property manager, you were the leasing consultant.
Hmm.
I was brand new as a
Hmm.
property manager,
Hmm.
managing a really, really large property.
Yeah.
It was 625 units, all of it wasn't occupied at the time. I think about maybe 325 of it was because that particular company added on a phase two,
Mm-hmm.
which consisted of about 300 units or 325, whichever one it was.
Yeah.
Basically, it was a shitload of apartments, and I was thrown into this thing, and I had no idea what I was doing. Now, I do want to say this because, again, we're talking about trauma in the workplace. So, this is going to be two segments,
Yeah.
but we're also going to talk about teacher student interchangeability
Yes.
because now the roles have reversed.
Somewhat, right? We're still a team.
Oh, we're definitely a team.
We
And
still play for the same team. I just have more players on my team.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, in other words, this is now my boss and I'm her employee. So, again, hence teacher student interchangeability. But rewinding the clock back a bit, it's very, very, very important to talk about our initial exchange, experience, encounter, because again, the portion of this is trauma in the workplace. And in that time for me was a very trauma ridden time. So, with that being said, our first time working together, what was that experience like for
It was a shit show. It was very interesting. It was eventful. I learned a lot of great lessons. One of the biggest one was learning emotional control, emotional intelligence. Because watching you are not were, you are a dynamic leader. People listen to you, but it was the emotional part. I've seen you come in the office and take out every desk drawer and dump everything on the floor because they wouldn't clean out their desk drawers. I've seen you get in altercations with residents where the police had to be called. I've seen and heard of the residents they put grits in your tank, right? Was it
Yes.
grits? Grits, yeah, and they keyed your car. So it was interesting to watch you battle with the emotions of being in property management, because property management is a very emotional career field to be in, because you have so many people that you're trying to navigate with, right? You've got your residents, you've got your teammates, you've got upper management, you've got asset management, you've got investors, you've got vendors. And so being able to tie all of that in and every day come in with the same personality, the same energy can be a little draining. And I think some days it just got the best of you. But I knew to stay on task. All right. I stayed in the office that was the furthest away from you because I didn't want to overhear anything that I could be subpoenaed in court for. And this also kept my
This is
desk.
very real.
This is real. I kept my desk clean. I made sure all my paperwork was together. I made sure that whatever you asked me to do, I did it. Because I wanted to make sure I did not contribute to anything that would set you off to a certain degree. So that's kind of an overview of how it was. Now there were days where we had fun. There were days, more days than the other days, where we had a great time. We had a really great team. We still leased up, and that's the thing. Even though there was traumatic situations, we still were able to do what our challenge was to lease up the property and maintain a certain occupancy and delinquency. But it just wasn't a smooth ride. It was a roller coaster ride. Yeah.
Geez, a roller coaster ride is an accurate description. Um, Now, you were 100% right on all of those accounts. I do, however. Okay, so the dumping out everything in the desk. Okay, all the drawers dumping them out. My mentor actually in the meeting told all of the managers to do that, and he was like, "Listen, if you do that, then they will definitely make sure that their drawers are clean." He said, "My boss actually did that to me, but the way in which I did it was just horrible." So I want to provide a little bit more color to that, and it's actually great and refreshing to hear those things. And actually, well, not with this new team now, but with
Hmm.
my old team prior to the transition, I would always reference this period in my career journey with them, particularly after they would express compliments of leadership, management, so on and so forth. And I said, listen, it came directly from these experiences. But let's provide a little bit more color. Let's call the shit what it was. It was a mass exodus. Nobody wanted to work with me, for me. Residents didn't want to live at the property. When you said emotional intelligence, you were spot on. You hit the nail right on the head. And that's why I want this particular segment of the conversation to talk about trauma in the workplace. You know, people are promoted, not just in property management, but in business in general, because they're proficient at a thing or a series of things.
Hmm.
The leadership component, however, is a completely separate intangible that you have to learn along the way. And a lot of people think that leaders are born, which I'm a proponent of that. Leaders can also be made. Like there's a series of techniques and experience that one can cultivate and become an amazing leader. Um, but prior to all of that, I was horrible at that. It was so bad to where this was, I don't know, this was like maybe 2010, 2009, 2011, back when not the social media, but the online reputation management
Hmm.
became a thing.
Apartment ratings.
and we really started to focus on
Hmm.
it, right? And our ratings were like 2.2% on Google, right? And this push came out corporate. We got to work on this, right? It's 2.2% because we never worked on it,
Hmm.
right? And in fairness, every community within the portfolio had a very low percentage because nobody worked on it.
Yeah.
But what happened at our property was very, very, very interesting. I would go on and respond to all the negative reviews. Residents would immediately thereafter, like, stop what they're doing, whether they're at work, whatever they're doing, and they would immediately reply and be like, no, this is bullshit. They suck. And it all starts with him. One resident actually even said, yo, I think this guy has a mental problem.
Wow.
So, looking back on that now is very interesting, particularly considering what, I've undergone. And I want to let you speak, but in terms of leadership, like, you know, there was such a huge personality spread with me to the point
Hmm.
to where you don't know what the hell kind of day you're going to have. You don't know what type of environment you're walking into, right? And a lot of us deal with trauma personally. A lot of us deal with trauma in our interpersonal relationships. All of us, I believe, deal with trauma in the workplace, but I don't think we really attribute what we experience in the workplace and categorize it effectively as dysfunction and or associated trauma. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that is very, very true. You have people who, like you said, leaders can be born, most of them are made. And the goal for everyone, well, I would say probably 50% of people is to get to that next level. So a lot of times we endure trauma, we suppress our feelings, we don't get the counseling that we need because we're so gung ho on getting to that next step. You know, oh, it'll be okay. So what if they disrespect me when I'm working? So what if my voice is not being heard? The goal is for me to go from a leasing consultant to an assistant manager to a property manager. And whatever means, by whatever means it takes for me to be there, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to suppress my feelings and just take the hit after hit after hit. It's just like a football player. You go out there, you gotta get the touchdown. You gotta get the touchdown. It doesn't matter what your body feels like. It doesn't matter if you don't feel like playing today. Your goal is to go out because it's embedded and it's ingrained in your mind. You're part of the team. You can't let the team down. And so, with that, we take all of these subconscious hits and never deal with them. And for me, now in a leadership role, I am big on life work balance. Want my teams to use your PTO, use your sick time, use your vacation time. Call me and say, listen, I can't do it. I don't have the bandwidth to come in and deal with my team, with the residents. And there's nothing wrong with it because there's some days I don't have the bandwidth to deal with it. My position is a little bit different, but we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves first. And I think in that situation, when you and I were working together, you were trying to get to that next level. They had prematurely put you in a leadership role without giving you what you needed to be successful. And instead of you saying, hold up, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this, or I need someone to come and help me, you're like, I'm going to make it work, whatever it takes. And so you're out there taking blow, 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 and it's not helping you. It's not helping the people around you. And so now you've got high turnover. You've got high turnover not only with the residents, but also with your team members. Nobody wanted to work. And the good thing is that you always came to work late. So we were there early. We were there early so we could mentally prepare because we never knew who was going to walk through the door. Me, I recognized it. And that's why you and I worked together several other times after that, because I didn't take it personal. I knew that whatever you were going through was something that you had going on personally, and it did not have anything to do with me. On top of the fact that I need a job because I had a family to take care of. So I think a lot of times in our industry, in every industry, when you are focused on getting to that next level, you forget to nourish yourself and take time and reflect on what you really have going on. And this is the right direction. A lot of times you want to be a leader, but what type of leadership do you want to be in? Property management is a little bit different. And so, like I said, it was traumatic, but it was a very impactful time in my life working with you several occasions. So, yeah,
Awesome. I want to shout out. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you remember because you're friends on Facebook. Alexis Person.
I do. She's an attorney
She's
now.
an attorney now.
Yeah.
We're friends on Facebook, but
Hmm.
she and I don't have interaction.
Hmm.
But shout out to Alexis Person. I remember the most meaningful thing that she said, and it wasn't even directly to me,
Hmm.
but I do believe that it was about me, but it was in
Hmm.
casual conversation. She said, she quoted Abraham Lincoln,
Hmm.
right? And she said, most men deal with adversity well. But if you really want to test the man's character, you give him power, right? So in the position
Hmm.
of leadership, I don't think that the my disconnect or my dissonance, I don't think that it was a direct reflection of my character because I think I know who I well now I do, but
Hmm.
even then, I know who I am or who I was then at my core.
Hmm.
But I think the trauma and the dysfunction came to the forefront, right? So I think in the workplace or in life in general, but specifically the workplace, I think, yeah, those leadership roles bring that out or exacerbate them, right? Because you referenced some pretty critical moments. Yeah, you were right. There were instances where like police had to be called, right? I had very little emotional intelligence, and our business, well, shit, probably most businesses in
Hmm.
sales are high velocity. They're incredibly numbers driven.
Yes.
You have to perform,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that um, creates, I don't even want to say a tough environment, but it creates a pressure environment. But for someone that's trauma ridden, pressure environment equates to triggers. So now I can look back with an evolved lens and say, there were several moments where I allowed myself to become triggered for things that I should not have allowed myself to become triggered by. And that could have been potentially dangerous. And because how you referenced earlier, yeah, there were some good times in the midst of those times. In addition to the two people that believed in me, Jamin Harkness, Melissa Moyer, I appreciate y'all. But even for them, I was a huge liability, right? Particularly when you're talking about managing a multi-million dollar asset
Yeah.
and being the face, the representation of a company, a liaison between those your customer and your corporate office. So yeah, so that was a very, very, very interesting, scary time. But again, I can attribute a lot of that. I think that my failures and shortcomings in the earlier part of my career had nothing to do with aptitude. It had nothing to do with skill set. It had everything to do with mental instability. And it's interesting, scary, but really fascinating to me because we all deal with this in some shape, way, or form in the workplace. But like I said a little while ago, we don't call it trauma.
We call it burnout. We call it frustration. We call it from a leadership role, we say that the person is not capable. And so that's what the major issue is. We have all these other names, but at the end of the day, it's all about finding that emotional intelligence and the mental stability to make it work. And that's in any job. McDonald's,
Right.
Chick-fil-A, you have to have that mental stability to say my pleasure over and over again, even though they're cussing you out and telling you you didn't give them enough Polynesian sauce. You still have to and this is the thing. When people in our industry and any industry, when they get to you, 9 times out of 10, the emotions that they have absolutely nothing to do with you. They've had a bad day at work, their children are getting on their nerves, but because you're there, and we're one of the only businesses and industries where they can actually come into the office and assert certain emotions, whatever's going on with them, we get the brunt of it. And then the other part is they live in the product that we supply, which is totally different. You go buy a car from the car lot, they finance it, you deal with the finance company. You don't go back and deal with the salesperson ever again. In our industry, we deal with them over and over and over again. And you have to have emotional intelligence. You have to be able to differentiate between what is directed at you and what is just directed, and so that's what we have to understand. So it is very stressful, and some people have learned how to navigate that. Some people will never learn how to navigate that. There are some people who cry, you know all the time. And I'm like, this is not for you. If you are, every time somebody come here and curse you out, every time somebody says something on the line that they don't like you and they mention your name, if you cannot deal with that, then this is not the industry for you. If you can't have those tough conversations, if you can't drill back and know, okay, you know what, it's time for us to stop this conversation because it's going to go in the wrong direction, then you will never succeed in any business that deals with customers because you can't make everybody happy all the time. And that's the most important part.
I agree. Now, all the way back then when we worked together,
Mhm.
I think that you were the most stable person that I ever encountered. You were married, right? You had little Allie. Like Allie's about to graduate high school now.
She is. Oh my gosh.
She was a toddler all the way back
Yeah.
then, man. And you were just so focused on her growth, her development, your credit, living life right, doing taxes. Like you were just super duper stable, and that translated into how you work. It translated into your performance, right? It translated into my dependence of you, and that dependency, as a result of trauma, turned into codependency. So it was never an environment because I didn't have, number one, I was trauma ridden, but I didn't have the skill set that I believe I have now, which is to be a leader and a leader maker.
Mhm.
So when it came time, because I remember it's so funny, because when it came time, I remember I came into work, like you were the most stable person. I came in my office and there was a note, there was a letter on my keyboard, and my heart dropped. And it was your 2 week notice.
Do
And
you remember showing your butt?
I'm getting to
Oh,
that.
okay.
And I was like, holy fucking shit. What am I gonna do now? This is my most dependable person is leaving. And I treated you like crap that whole 2 weeks.
You did.
And right, like I couldn't see, okay, well, this is this own person's growth and development. This is what's supposed to happen at some point, right? Particularly again, like if you're in a leadership mindset and you're thinking outside of yourself, if you're not trapped in first person and all this trauma crap, you would be happy for a person in a situation like that. But no, I was not that. I was the complete opposite. What was that like?
So to go back to you saying I was the most stable, that was your perception, not the reality, right? So I was married, but I was heading towards divorce. My husband's mom and dad had just passed away. They passed within a month of each other. And I had a 1 year old at that point in time. So I was not stable. But what I have learned is that you have to present yourself.
Mm,
You have to be able to compartmentalize. And so when I come to work, all of the stuff that's going on at my house, I close that door and I focus on work because no one at my job needs to know or should know what's going on personally with me unless I decide to divulge that information to them. Some people mesh and blend and their personal with their professional. And I will tell you this as a leader, it never works out. When your team members know all about your personal life and what's going on in your personal relationships, it is not a good thing. It is not. They start to look at you differently. So I ended up getting ready to leave, I took an assistant manager role at a property not far from where we were, not because I wasn't happy where I was, but because of the company, some of the policies and procedures that they had, and then for financial reasons. I mean, I was making $12 an hour, and there would be months where if one of my residents didn't pay or they skipped or whatever, I would have a negative bonus, negative commission. I'm like, I can't live my life and continue to do what I need to do for my family with having that financial burden. And so, yeah, you treated me like crap, but I understood because I knew that you depended heavily upon me to perform, to get the leases so that the numbers would stay stable. And so when you are taking away a key component of your organization, of your machine, how do you handle that? How do you deal with that? And instead of coming to me and say, Alicia, what can we do to keep you? You went left, right? And I was like, well, I'm gonna let him have his little pity party over there. And I still came to work every day. I still performed and worked out my 2-week notice, which was great because guess what? We ended up working together again. I came back because where I went didn't work. So if it was that bad, think about this. If it was that bad, why would I have come back? So that's kudos to you because it was something that you were doing right, which I've always told you this. You have had a profound impact on me professionally and personally. So that's why I ended up shifting and coming back. Then I left again. Then I left again. I took a position, 1,000 unit property in Stone Mountain. It went really, really well. And then we worked together again.
Now, before we get to that,
Yeah.
now our second tenure with one another,
Uh-huh. It was short,
it was short.
very short.
Your 2 week notice. Did I treat you like crap the second time?
No,
I didn't.
you did not.
Okay, good.
Because I think you knew it was just a comma. I think you knew that it was a pause. I was coming back because it didn't work out over here. So I was coming back, but you knew I wanted to be an assistant manager, but you didn't have that position available for me. So you grew a little bit from the first to the second.
Um, yeah, there was a little bit of growth. I think it was inconsequential. I think that if I could categorize it, I was still in the state where I couldn't identify the forest from the trees.
Hmm.
Um, So I want to leave that experience and I want to go to what you just mentioned, the time when we worked together in Stone Mountain. I actually called you
Hmm.
and you were actually working. You were stable in your position and I offered you a position. It was a little bit more money per hour, but when you computed everything with your mileage and everything that you had going on, taxes, so on and so forth, it really turned out to not really be that substantial. But you came anyway. Why was that?
I thoroughly enjoy working with you. I really have enjoyed working with you. And I think the most important thing is when you've worked with someone and I knew you, I knew your character, I knew the way that you moved. And so it was a level of comfort, and a level of stability. I knew I never had to worry about my job. I knew if something was happening with my family, that it wouldn't be an issue with you. So it was a level of comfort that we had developed over at this point in time. I think it had been like 3 years of us working together off and on. And so, yeah, I did come back. I came back and got to work with you again, and it was going well. And then life happened, right? So we had a break in. Somebody broke into the office and they stole thousands of dollars in
Hundreds
money,
of thousands.
hundreds of thousands of dollars in money orders, which, I knew in my position that the money should be posted. But I did not post the money. And so at the end of the day, I ended up getting terminated
Because I told you.
because I wanted to
I
leave that
told
part
you.
out. Well, he told me not to
This is
post.
honesty and transparency.
He told me, Alicia, don't worry about it. Just come in and do it tomorrow. And tomorrow came and they broke in the office and stole hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of money orders. But at the end of the day, I knew the policy.
Right.
I knew the procedure. So I couldn't put that off on you. And even when I was in at the corporate office, they called me up to the corporate office to kind of go through where we were with tracking the money orders and kind of what happened. And I never told them, Saquon told me not to post the money. I took that because that's the level of respect I had for you because I knew what I was supposed to do. So it didn't make any sense for both of us to get penalized for that, you know? And it was the first time I'd ever got fired. It was the first and hopefully the last time I ever got fired. And I remember coming back and getting my stuff, and it was almost like you completely shut down. And I don't know if it was guilt or what it was, but I kept telling you, I'm good. I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be fine. Um, but it, that every time I've worked with you, I've learned a valuable lesson, and I try to convey those lessons to my teams now that one little decision can change everything. And yeah, I'm tired. Yeah, I'm ready to go home, but always do the right thing, regardless of who tells you not to do the right thing. Always do the right thing. So that was we worked together. I think there maybe maybe 6 months, give or take. It wasn't a long thing. And then I went off into the sunset.
And then you became even more phenomenal. But prior to getting to that, so from the time of our initial working together and then that time in Stone Mountain, from your vantage point, was there any measurable improvement in my skill set, temperament, so on and so forth?
I will say this at the property in Stone Mountain, because there were so many employees, you were able to kind of sit back in your office and do more operational than having to be one on one with the residents. And I think that definitely helped. That you had a team that you trusted, that they were going to handle the front end, and you were able to sit back and do more of the analytical operations end. So there wasn't a lot of drama going on with that. You had built a team of people that you trusted and they trusted you. That makes a huge difference. And so you knew on the forefront, you were good. And so I think that's when you actually had the time to kind of sit and actually sit in your position and start developing your leadership. Because I think at that time you had just got your CAM. And so it was like, okay, I could see your leadership starting to take off. It was a totally different, I would say not 180, but like a 90-degree change when it came from initially to when we worked together in Stone Mountain.
And the reason why I asked you that is because of this. So, and you're right, we did. We built a great team in that particular space, and there was some significant growth. However, the triggers still remain. So there would be moments where whatever set that trigger off, then that same Saquon would rear his ugly face.
But not as frequent, not as frequent. And so that was a good thing because, and I can't say if it was because you had a more mature staff. I'll tell you that you had a more mature staff, not only as far as age, but also in the industry. Versus when we first worked together, you had a younger staff who was very immature, that needed a lot of training and development. And so you still surface, but it was very rare. It was a one-off. Um, no, no desk drawers being pulled out, and but it wasn't that. So I can definitely say there was growth and development from the beginning to that point. Yeah.
And then, and I caught myself. I almost said, and then that unfortunate circumstance happened, which led you to go away. But in hindsight, it wasn't so unfortunate, right? Because you left and then your career took off. Now, for me, because we didn't work together anymore
Mhm.
for a while there, and I can honestly say that my career, while I was growing in small increments, well, no, I think that even after Stone Mountain, as far as leadership and team building or staffing, not
Mhm.
necessarily team building, I think I got that part
Mhm.
down pat. So I had good teams that could sort of perform, shield me away from resident interaction, so on and so forth. The trauma was still there in each subsequent occurrence. And it didn't necessarily rear its face with burnout or tumultuous resident interaction, so on and so forth, right? But it would rear its faces in the personality spread insofar. I had this guy at Stone Mountain, that property, right? I wouldn't necessarily categorize him as a leader or a mentor, but he did say something that was impactful. And he used the baseball analogy, right? He was like, and he was talking about me. And I wouldn't even say inadvertently. He was indirectly talking about me so that I can digest what he was saying. And I never forgot this. And he was like, listen, in baseball, because he was a baseball guy, you have a spread,
Mhm.
right? And managers try to manage that spread. So you have a guy that can bat 338. I think that's a good batting score. I don't look at baseball. But for conversations purposes, you got a guy that can bat 338, right? When he's
Mhm.
really good.
Mhm.
But then when he's really bad, he bats 100,
Mhm.
right? So that's a 238-point spread, right? So that spread differential when I manage you is too big. Like it's within the realm of liability
Yeah.
at this point, right? So we were talking about performance, we were talking about skill set, we were talking about attitude, so on and so forth. And the goal we said is, listen, to find someone or to become someone with as short of a spread span as possible.
Yeah.
And logically, I began to digest that. This was before the mental health journey, uh, but I digested that, and then I started to understand what he was saying, and my management began to improve. I saw some stability, but then when things would happen on the home front
Mhm.
or wherever, then that trauma reared its face in different ways. That spread became okay. 1 month, I'm in pretty good shape.
Mhm.
Next 2 months, I'm incredibly fat. I'm coming in on time. Now I'm coming in late. One moment I'm incredibly engaged. I'm on top of the analytics. I'm proactive. I can tell you what's wrong. The next month, you have to tell me. I don't know what's going on with the analytics. So it became unstable in that way.
Mhm.
So there would be moments where the property would perform exceptionally well, and then the next month, it was like you just referenced that roller coaster ride, right?
Mhm.
So you would see those moments that were, if I can dare say, ingenious. Because when I'm on, I'm on. But when I'm off, man, it was so bad. So that kind of happened to me with my experience. So and that led to quite a few terminations, to be quite honest, which definitely put a strain on my home life, right? And then those were some of the precursors that led to that divorce, and then the subsequent mental health journey. But before getting to that, that's what happened with me. Now, conversely, you were on your ascension. So talk to me a little bit about that.
I after, working with you and getting terminated, I made a decision. I had to make a decision if property management was what I wanted to do. And I said, I love this industry. I tell people it's recession proof. I've never heard of property management companies laying off. I've heard them cutting certain positions, but never laying off. And so what I did was I went and worked for a company, and I was an assistant manager. Now, mind you, I fudged my resume to get to the assistant manager positions. So I went and worked as an assistant manager. And my regional came to me and said, "Hey, we have a property in Conyers," which at that point in time that's where I was living. And she said, "We're going to put you out here. We're going to give you a 90-day trial to see if you're ready to be a property manager." And I went out there and I killed it. I literally killed it. And that's, not being, extra. I killed it. And it just took off from there. I positioned the property, it sold. I came back to the property where I was assistant manager. They made me a property manager there. And then I went and became a district manager. And then I ended up in the position that I'm in now. And this was all within a span of like maybe 7 years of me going from ACD to a regional. And I tell people I just operate in excellence. That's it. That's all I do. It's no code or secret trick to it. I do what I'm supposed to do. I try to motivate my teams. And I think that's been the biggest impact on me being as successful as I am is because I have great teams. I've learned to interview, which you're a great interview person. But I've learned to interview. I've learned to build relationships with people, and majority of my team, probably half of my team, I've worked with before. And so I have that trust factor. I know that I can have conversations with them, and they understand. What they say now is "speak fluent, Alicia." Is the running joke? Is that you come over to my team and there's a language that we speak, and the language is excellence. And that's how it got me from leasing to a regional in such a short amount of time. And I love my job. I love what I do. I love working with the people. I love the development. I love seeing people think. This is the thing. And my manager said this to me on Friday. He said, some people are still chasing titles. She said, I'm not chasing titles anymore. She said, if I stay in the position that I'm in until I retire, I will be fine. I'm at the state where I want to mentor and I want to grow other people. If you are constantly chasing titles, you will constantly chase titles. And I don't chase a title at all. I chase people. I want people to be successful. I want them to kind of understand that it's not about the job, it's not about the property, it's about what we do and the customer service that we give out. And I think that has been one of the best one of the best things that I've learned. And from you as well, because I've seen bad customer service. Seen bad customer service and I've seen great customer service, and I see the difference. And so that's just kind of how I've gotten to where I am, and not only professionally but personally. You get to a point where, you know, personally with my kids, they operate in excellence. I have a daughter who's graduating, and I sat down and we're graduating. Let's say
I know
that.
that's
We're graduating, and I was sitting down doing her resume for college, and I'm like, girl, you are killing it. You are a leader, like a natural born leader, from captain of the cheerleading squad to treasurer of the student council to ambassador for the career academy. But that's all she's seen. That's all she's known. All she's seen is excellence her whole life. So she has no choice to be excellent. And I didn't realize until I sat down and started writing out her accolades. And I'm like, we did this because she didn't do it by herself.
facts. No, of
We did this.
course.
So even on a personal level, and she gets frustrated with me sometimes, but at the end of the day, when you embed that in someone, whereas you get to work on time, you do the right thing, you perform, you don't get frustrated, you treat people the way you want to be treated. It's the best thing you could ever do, and it helps build you for success. It builds character. It helps sets you up for success. And so that's just we just operate in excellence. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did a tremendous job, and you're still doing a tremendous job with all of that, both professionally and personally. And I want to come back briefly to that point where I was telling you that, yeah, I hit that ceiling and I stopped growing. You continued to grow, and I stopped growing. But your professional growth is just a manifestation of your internal growth, right? So I looked at that like I hit a ceiling, I stopped growing, and I got to the point, and this was right shortly before my marriage began to struggle. Well, I think it was, I think the troubles were looming even
Mhm.
then. Um, but I, when I hit that ceiling, it was always somebody else's fault, right? Out of 5 times, well, there were two occurrences where I can honestly say even now where I experienced determination, and I don't necessarily think that it was my fault, even when I assess it now.
Mhm.
But 3 of them, so 60% of them, this would definitely be okay. That spread that I referenced, but I bring all of that back up to say because like I was done with property management, but I wasn't really done with property management. I had experienced so much failure, and I didn't have a healthy relationship with failure. And this is prior to the mental health journey. So I feared failure. I didn't want to go back to that and experience that again because I felt like if I did, that would cripple me. But also at that point, this was right on the cusp of me beginning that journey when I went to my therapist and I was like, yo, there's so many things going on in my life and I feel like I have no control over it. So I felt like if I went back into this realm or in this arena, I can't stop this from happening again. And if it happened again, that would cripple me. Like
Mm.
I felt that, right? So I stayed away from property management. And then fast forward, boom, we filed for divorce. I go to New York, and I don't know what's going to happen in my life. I had a few, well, all of my therapy sessions were virtual, right? But I was in New York and I was having therapy sessions. Shout out to my mom, shout out to my uncle. But then I get a fortuitous call because I didn't know what was going to happen in life. Like I'd left everything. Like I left my divorce. I didn't have a thing, right? So I didn't know what was going to happen. So then, I get a phone call, fortuitous, a lucky, a godsend phone call from you,
Yep,
and you offer me a position. And I think even in that conversation, there was a lot of apprehension in my voice. Like, yeah, like I was in a tough space, and I knew I needed to work, but I was apprehensive about going back to property management. And you convinced me to do that. You remember that?
I do. And the phone call did not come easy because here I was, someone that had worked under you who is now calling you, say, "Hey, you want to come work for me?" And a whole bunch of, thoughts went into that is as a man, you know, um, how is he going to feel about working for me when you had been in the industry longer than me? You had introduced me to the industry. And so I was nervous. And then it was, okay, what is his state of mind? Who is Saquon today? Is he 2009, 2010 Saquon? Is he 2011 Saquon? Or is he a 20, what was that, 2021, 2022 Saquon? I had no clue who was on the other end of that telephone, but I knew that because I had taken a new position, I needed to have people around me that I trusted and that I knew were able and capable of getting the job done. And if that meant me taking a chance, then I was willing to take that chance. And so I made the phone call, and I could almost tell the apprehension in your voice when we were talking. It was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." It was like, "Okay, let me think about it." Because you didn't tell me yes immediately. You said, "Let me think about it." And I had been following you on social media, and I didn't know exactly what you were doing, what industry you were in, how long you had been out of property management. I called one of our mutual friends and was like, "Hey, do you know what's going on with Saquon?" And she was like, "No, I haven't really talked to him." And so I'm like, okay, well, let me just see what happens. I mean, all he could tell me is no, or he could come and be a complete shit show again. Then I would have to, take the fault for that. But I'm like, I'm willing to take the chance. And I'm very happy I did.
So in addition to the tumultuousness that I described, like a lot of that, well, all of it ultimately is my fault. And I learned because, like, starting in that position, like I said, I was undergoing the mental health journey, and I was learning a lot about myself, right? And now we've shifted from trauma in the workplace. Now I hope you guys can pick up on that or deduce that now we're talking about teacher student interchangeability here. Um, that in addition to the trauma, in addition to the lack of emotional intelligence, so on and so forth, I think that I stopped growing, I stopped learning, and that contributed directly to me hitting that ceiling as well. Yeah, I got a story, right? Yeah, I remember I was at Wesley. I was still working there, right? And one day I woke up. I had this bright idea, right? I don't know if you might have been gone. I was like, yo, I'm gonna be a barber. I did. I was like, yo, I'm gonna be a barber. But no, no, no. But listen. So I woke up and I said that. But when I said that, it wasn't go to school. It was like, no, I'm a barber right now.
Today,
Like right now,
you got to cut somebody
today,
today.
in this moment. I watched like 3 YouTube videos. I got the balloon with the straight razor, right? And I was going over the balloon. I didn't pop the balloon because that's what the video said. It was like, yo, you could do this and you're good. I was cutting my own hair for a while, so my Caesar game was great, right? So I started to do this, right?
Mhm.
And shout out to Billy Willis. Now, Billy, I was a horrible manager to Billy, right? And he'll probably tell you that to this day. But the one thing he won't front on is Caesar. Like he had a receded hairline, he had a bald spot. Every time I cut this guy's head, you couldn't tell. It was perfect,
So
right?
you were cutting Billy's hair.
I was cutting Billy's hair and a few other regulars, right? So I'm a barber, okay? So then, so this guy comes to the apartment that I converted into a barbershop.
So okay, you were violating your own lease
I was
at your
violating
own
my own lease agreement as the manager. You understand what I'm saying? Listen, every day we hustle. So one of the residents at Kensington came over. I was like, "What's up, bro? What you want?" He said, "Y'all want a bald fade."
Did you have to go watch YouTube video to find out what it was?
No, I knew what the fade, but I never did it. So he's like, "I want a bald fade." I said, "I bet." I never did this before in my life. All right. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, right? Like on the exterior, I was super duper calm.
Mhm.
But internally, I was shook daddy. I never did this before, right?
Mhm.
You're a black woman. You can attest to this. You don't play with a black woman's hair.
Or a black man's haircut.
But listen, you fuck up a black man's haircut.
It's over.
It's a wrap.
It's fist fight.
It might be death. Death might potentially ensue from it. Long story short, I don't know how the hell I did it, but I did it. And it was a dope ass fade.
Mhm.
Now, on the one hand, you can look at the ingenuity, right? The confidence to do a thing, right?
Mhm.
That we all have. We all have. Oh, I wouldn't call that genius, right? But what I'm saying, I'm using that to drive home a point. We all have genius level ability. So on the one hand, you can look at that story and you can identify with that. But then on the other hand, there's something even more impactful: the arrogance, right? The audacity, right? To do a thing and then even be successful in this one thing, but to not learn, the unwillingness to go through proper channels, right? Even if you want to learn unconventionally, you ain't gotta go to barber school. You can go sit at the feet of somebody else, right?
Mhm.
But that links directly to neuroplasticity and trauma because there are moments when we actually think we're learning and we can't deduce on our own that you stopped learning. And not only have you stopped learning, you stop being susceptible to learning, right?
Right.
So the arrogance in that, and that attributed directly to me hitting that ceiling. Because in addition to my own trauma, you understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like I became someone that talking to you is like talking to a brick wall. It doesn't sink in, right? And then after a while, and it's like you have all of this potential talking about me. Like I
Mhm.
look at my makeup, right? So people buy into that. Yo, you got this, you got that, you got that. Yo, if you do this, this, and this, but that brick wall component, right?
Yeah.
That burned out a lot of people very, very, very fast. So I was left in that moment, but again, mental health journey, you see, and then learning how to deal with all of that gave me the strength to want to address that because working with you, that was the beginning phases of that. But immersing myself in it, I began to learn how to be a student again. So now we're working together. What was that like at Brook Valley? And because like yeah, you said it a moment ago. Yeah, I was apprehensive about yeah, I don't know what the hell kind of Saquon I'm gonna get, this, that, and the other. I'm his boss now. Can he hit? Like, what is that?
Mean, it was apprehension in the beginning. However, it has been great. I can honestly say that you have done a 180. And The one thing I can say is the emotional intelligence definitely is there. You have been an asset to your team. The gratitude meetings have taken over the entire region, not just your property, not just my region, but the South Atlantic region. Probably 50% of the properties do something similar to a gratitude meeting in the morning before their team members get started. And it sets the tone for the day. It helps everyone become relatable. You kind of know what's going on in everybody's life. And so, Tion, who is our regional construction manager, sat in on one of yours and he was just elated by the way you all do that. And that's something that I had never heard of in the beginning. Yeah, you do a team meeting in the morning, but you don't talk about what you're grateful for and all. You talk about these numbers, how we're gonna run today. And so it has set the tone, like I said, not only for your property, for your teams, but several other teams within our region. We even do it on our regional calls before we have our meetings. So kudos to you. Shout out to you
Ha!
for doing that. But it has been amazing to watch your growth. And I mean that. It is like you're not the same Saquon. And in the beginning, I didn't ask a lot of questions about what was going on with you personally. I still haven't asked those questions because once again, we have now a working relationship. And so whatever you want to tell me, you can, whatever I figure out through, the lines and the cracks, I figure it out. But just to see the rebuild, the rebrand, has been phenomenal. And there are days, well, I will call and I can tell. And I think that's the difference is that I know you, I get to know my team members, and I can tell when y'all are off. So there are some days that I'll call and I'm like, go home, Saquon. You're not ready to work today. I can tell by your energy, something's off. And I'm like, nope, we're not doing this today because I understand the importance and the impact that you have if you go into the office and you're having an off day. And that's why I'm like, use the PTO, use the sick time, use your personal days to reset so that you don't go in and have a negative impact on an entire team and an entire property because something is off with you. And you've recognized that. There have been days you're like, yeah, I can't come to work and I don't question it. I don't question anybody. Okay, no problem. Y'all don't call them, call me because you need a reset. Some days you don't have the bandwidth, and it's okay to say, I don't want to do this today. I don't want to adult today. I don't want to go in and deal with the residents today. I don't want to be a leader today. I want to sit on my sofa and eat Doritos and watch crappy TV. And there's nothing wrong with that. No judgment. It's okay. And I think I mean, it's been what, 2.5? Is it 2 years? How 2 years?
A little over 2 years, yeah.
And I would think outside of Wesley, this probably has been the longest position yeah, yeah. And I think it all goes back to the fact is that you know who you are now, even though you did know who you are before, but you know how to express who you are. You know how to deal with people. You know mentally what's going on with yourself, and you know that it's not a negative thing. You know that you're in a stage of growth, um, and that right now this is a means to an end. Do I think Saquon is going to become a regional manager? Do I think Saquon is going to be a RVP? If Saquon wants to be that, he'll be that because you get to write the next chapter. And I think before you were letting the chapters be written by whatever was going on around you. And now you get to write the story. You have the pen in your hand and you're writing it. So whatever tomorrow is going to be what you created and what you want it to be.
Very well said. I am so incredibly proud of your growth. Proud to be in the position that I am under you. I can see the spirituality and the timing that that call had taken place. I'm very, very, very proud of myself because in a situation like that, one can allow their ego to get in the way. And not just at that one time, but several times throughout the course of a 2.5 year working relationship. And I'm very proud of myself because I can honestly say that there hasn't been one time, either internally or externally, where I expressed any dismay of working under you or not deferring to you or not respecting you as the amazing regional manager that you are. um, and I'm very proud of that. And because they're that's the other side of the coin. The coin is okay. You can have that. I'm also proud of the fact that there's a very, 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 very small part that I had to play in producing this, and that makes me feel good. It ties in. You can see the symbiosis in life, in relationships, so on and so forth. And then I'm also thankful because it's a situation where politics aren't involved. So yes, the emotional intelligence is the mental growth and all these different things. But working with someone that genuinely has your back gives you an opportunity to just flourish in an environment, right? Don't get me wrong, you're still held to performance standard, right? You go to work, you do your job, you perform, and you don't have to worry about anything else. And that's an environment that you produce and cultivate. So ultimately, I'm very, very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, you didn't play a small part. You played a major part in where we are right now. Um, you know, I try, strengths and weaknesses. All of my team members have strengths, they all have weaknesses. You are a motivator naturally, natural motivator, natural interviewer. You read people very, very, very well. And so that's why when people are like, oh, I need an interview, a second interview, don't call me, call Saquon. If someone is having a rough time and they need a little push, for send Saquon over there, not only for them, but to motivate their entire team because that's just your gift. Your gift is motivation. Your gift is being able to read people, meeting people where they are. And I think the best thing about what we have is you don't work under me. We work side by side. It's not Alicia here, Saquon here. In order for me to be successful, everybody on my team has to be successful. I just make more decisions than everybody else does. That's the only difference. I'm a decision maker. I respond to
You
emails.
move
I
a little
get
bit more paper too.
it ain't I'm seeing y'all are getting close to me because and also, the rewards that come with, being on Team Sanders. We have fun together. We've had phenomenal, trips and budget boot camps and quarterly meetings. The privilege of having time off when you need it, work life balance, not life work balance, and just having somebody where I'm gonna chew you up, but nobody outside of that conversation is going to know the conversation that we had. It's like you messing up. What do we need to do to get this together? But I'm not going to run and be like, well, they're over. No, it's like a family. What happens in our house stays in our house. And that's why we're successful because no one's whispering about, well, Saquon, we're not doing that at all. So you played a major role, not only in your success, my success, but the overall success in of our team. I mean, you just got promoted and that was not like taken lightly. It was like, okay, you've done all you can do right here. It's time to move on to something else. So either you're going to go up to another position or we're going to put you on a bigger property. You opted to go to a bigger property. That team now, where we had a lot of issues, they are now flourishing. They are very similar to what you created at Brook Valley, where y'all have those gratitude meetings. Y'all are working cohesively as a team to get to an ultimate goal. How long you're going to be there? I don't know. We may see some changes soon, but like I said, you get to write the next chapter. Yeah.
I think that, okay, so gift and the curse go hand in hand,
Hmm.
right? So, in other words, your whatever you're good at. Okay, let me say it like this: gift and the curse. It's the flip side of a coin.
Okay.
So, in the beginning, in the initial part of my career, it was tumultuous, right? That
Hmm.
same energy that I used to motivate people is the same energy that was used on the opposite uncontrollable side of the spectrum to repel people, right? So it was a curse on the other side of the mental health journey that ultimately became a gift I think that I do identify with being a leader maker. I'm thankful for that. I think I identify most, I'm happy now to identify most with being a student. And like Robert Smith would say, and I believe I mentioned this in the last episode, falling in love with figuring things out, right? That's very, very, very important to me. And my passion is what we're doing now,
Mhm.
right? Uh, I went through that journey. So there's a saying that says that, the strong are those that survive the fire, but return to the fire with water to help those that are still consumed within the fire. And I think if I were to describe what the You versus You podcast is, I would have to ultimately say that it's that. And that passion again turned me into a student. I study almost every day, right? Like I take this serious. I study almost every day. And what that did from a scientific standpoint, what happens? Okay, so you have your BDNF, BDNF, right? Your brain derived neurotrophic factor, right? So very, very, very strong in your infancy stages, right? And it begins to wane pre-adolescence and going into adolescence, right? So basically the BDNF is like a teacher in your brain that says, this is very important. You need to learn this. So quite naturally, it would be at its strongest in your infancy stages because you don't know shit about the world
Mhm.
and you need to learn what that is, right? So the BDNF, your brain derived neurotrophic factor, causes your nucleus basalis to activate, which is basically your brain's ability to focus, right? And it makes it stay on, right? And what that does is because neurons that fire together wire together. So your brain derived neurotrophic factor, the reason why you learn so much as a child is because all the neurons that fire together and wire together during that phase, that system ensures that they clump together so that they can fire together reliably going into your adolescent and adult years. But when you get to a point to where you're consuming so much or you're stimulating so much, it shuts off. The
Mhm.
nucleus basalis shuts off, right? For your adolescence going into adolescence. Then your ability to learn begins to wane. Then you succumb to the principle of use it or lose it.
Yeah.
And I did that for a huge portion of my life. And because I was so intellectually gifted, I thought that what I had all of that time would be enough to get me through, which was lazy, which was arrogant, and all of these different things. But the ability to face that fear, right? The ability to face that monster, because again, you can reactivate those things,
Mhm.
right? It's very difficult in your adult years, but it can be done. It's called brain mapping, right? So you can essentially remap your brain. And the amount of humbleness required to do that, the amount of strength required to do that, it's quite a bit. And I'm very, very, very thankful in my journey that I've gotten to a place that I've been able to do that. And I'm very thankful that, again, I can see the spiritual poetry in it. I'm very thankful that it's you that gets to serve as the facilitator or one of the facilitators of that.
I'm grateful.
And with that being said, I'm incredibly thankful that we got a chance to have this conversation. You got anything that you want to shout out?
Shout out to my girls, Isabella and Allison. I love you. And shout out to Team Sanders. We always win. We win, win, win. So shout out to Highmark for giving me and Saquon the opportunity to get back in property management and do what we love. So it was a pleasure being here to sit and talk with you. Maybe we'll do it again sometime.
I look forward to it. And as always, I love you.
Love you more.
Listen, if you found value here, and it's my sincere hope that you did, then please comment, like, subscribe. Follow the You versus You podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And keep checking me out, and we'll keep busting this thing down. Peace.
I'm so good now, I feel good now. The baggage put down, just let me live. Just let me live. Now my mind's clear. It's you versus you. It's you versus you. It's you versus you. It's you versus you.